Hi, this is Raven Dana, and today is Monday, March 14th, 2022. And we are going to be talking a little bit more today about synchronicity and coincidence and how we communicate with ourselves in that deep, strange, unconscious way. Or we can think about it as how the world around us communicates with us and either verifies things that we think we know or perhaps moves us off in a different direction when it's something we shouldn't be paying attention to. So I like to think of it, coincidence, I think not. That's anytime somebody says the word to me, I listen very carefully to see what's possibly going on in the background. And I'd like you to think about how this might work, that what we call coincidence or synchronicity has something to do with the way our larger being, our minds, our deeper awareness actually connects and communicates in a variety of ways that we are typically not consciously aware of. We don't have to know the mechanism to be able to get the signal. And I think, that's an important part of understanding strange events and peculiar happenings and things that we can't explain. We don't have to explain them in order to be aware of the result. We don't have to explain a rainbow in order to see that rainbow and know that it has colors and it's beautiful, right? We don't need to know how we can see it to see it. In very much the same way, we get all hung up on thinking of events as paranormal or supernatural. And, that is, those words really don't resonate with me because the things that we can't understand are normal and natural. All it means is either we don't understand them or science hasn't caught up to the mechanism by which they work. And that's perfectly fine. It doesn't mean that we ought to ignore the memos. So I'm going to tell you a few more stories today. And again, I would love to hear from you. If you would like to contact me, ravendana55@gmail.com, or you can check out my website, Raven Dana's Witch School, and you can email me through there and leave me a message. I would love to hear your stories, and I'd also be interested in hearing your take on how you think these experiences work, these little moments where we find ourselves walking between the worlds. So one of those happened to me just the other day, just yesterday actually. I had a dream about a friend. And in the dream, and this is somebody I can't tell you that I've ever had a dream about him. But in the dream, we were wandering around this large grocery store, and he kept pointing things out to me. He particularly pointed out fish and chicken and turkey and some vitamins on the shelf. And I said, what are we doing here? And I remember in the dream that he didn't look well, and I was concerned about his health. And he said, well, I don't listen to myself, but maybe I'll listen to you. So here's the thing. I need to eat more protein. In fact, I need a lot more protein. And over here, whatever this is I was taking, I don't need to take that. I need to take this. So I'm paying attention and I'm watching him and listening to him. And I thought when I woke up, that's really odd. So I gave him a call and said, listen, I have this dream. I'm just going to lay this out for you because it may mean something, it may not. And as I'm starting to tell him the dream, he says, wait a minute. And he puts me on speakerphone so that his partner, his girlfriend, who was there, could hear. And as it turns out, he had that night, the night before, gotten his blood work back and discovered that he is, in fact, very low on protein. And the way he had been eating probably had a lot to do with it. So not only was it accurate, but he was shocked because that blood test had just come in the night before, and they had just talked about it. He and his partner had just talked about, what he needs to do to improve and change his diet, and that he had, a little bit of resistance to it because he hadn't been eating meats and la-di-da. In any case, it was a memo. Then I said, look, it was just your people talking to my people, and you knew that you weren't going to listen to you, so you needed your own message to come out of somebody else's mouth, and that would be me. And so he got that. And we also talked about the supplement he was taking, to take not that it matters to you, but it was to take a prebiotic rather than just a probiotic. So, and again, this is not something that I, sat down and thought through. I had a dream and I delivered the memo. So pay attention, because sometimes a dream isn't just a dream. It's a message. It's a communication. It's not your brain working something out every single time, although we do that in our dreams as well. But dreams are like lasagnas. They have layers of information. And so this dream was very specific and clear about what was happening. And I'm so glad that I didn't try to interpret the dream. I just gave it to him exactly as it happened, which let him get the information he needed. So that's another thing I would caution you. Try not to let your brain get in the way and try to make meaning out of something. Just see if you can get to what's happening at face value. So I have another for you. My good friend Talia, who moved a couple of years ago now, I want to say maybe 4 years ago now, from Miami to Asheville, North Carolina. When she was looking to move and really wanted to get out of where she was and loved the mountains and loved the area, and she came back and was having second thoughts, the way we do when we throw our hats over the wall and try to make a big change, and we generally try to talk ourselves out of it. So this is what she told me. She said that when she was doubting herself, within a very short period of time, like a couple of weeks, these are some, and I mean some, of the many things that happened so repeatedly and so quickly that she said it took her breath away. So it included things like she went to the bank and was trying to solve a problem and was waiting for the bank manager. And when the bank manager came out and sat down, he said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I'm a little distracted and I'm getting ready to move." "Oh, where are you moving to?" "Oh, I'm moving to Asheville, North Carolina." She couldn't believe it. Okay. So then she is, a couple of days later, at the gym on her spin bike, and she's spinning away, and the woman next to her is spinning away, and she turns to my friend and says, "Hey, I'm getting ready to go on a vacation." And Talia says, "Well, where are you going?" "I'm going to visit my friend who just moved to North Carolina." Okay. That evening, she's out walking her dog, and she runs into a neighbor that she hasn't seen for a long time, walking his dog, and she says, "Hey, I haven't seen you around." He said, "Yeah, I know. I just was to visit a friend of mine in Asheville, North Carolina. Gee, it's beautiful there, blah, 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 blah." And she said, I couldn't even hear the rest of what he said because my mind was racing. That was, 3 times in 2 days. So it gets even more interesting. So she's talking to her friend, and, they're walking their dogs. And somebody else comes along, and this is a neighbor she sees a fair amount of. And that neighbor says to her, "Hey, Talia, do you happen to know of a good nurse practitioner? Because the one I've had for years and years and years and was a good friend of mine, she just left town. She just moved." And so they chatted for a minute, and then she said, "Oh, well, what was her name?" And she revealed her name, and Talia knew her. Talia said, "Oh, I know her. She was in, when I went to university, she was one of my teachers." And then the woman said, "Yeah, well, she just moved to North Carolina." So it's like, it's not that everybody from Florida was moving to North Carolina, but she got memo after memo after memo after memo. And as if that wasn't enough, that same evening, she was shopping in the grocery store and ran into somebody she hadn't seen for years that was also in one of the classes that she had taken with this woman. And so she said, she greeted her and said hi. And the first thing the woman said to her is, "Do you know that so-and-so moved to North Carolina?" It's like, what is this? So very long story short, she got clear. She got enough memos in a short enough period of time that she got over her hesitancy, and she did in fact find a lovely place and is now happily living in Asheville, North Carolina. So there's that. So here's another not coincidence. So a very good friend of mine had been living in New York City with his then fiance, and she was taking an improv class. and had come home one evening and said, I need something to work on that's different and dramatic. And then he said, okay, how about an improv about getting mugged? Maybe getting mugged at a train station or getting mugged. So she thought it through, and when that night, when she was coming home from work, she thought she would give herself a trial, and she thought about if she were walking, and how she would feel if somebody was following her. And she took her keys out of her pocket and put them between her fingers the way you would, and she picked up her pace and walked faster. And as she walked, she was like she was feeling the emotion. She was feeling scared, and she really wanted to get home. And anyway, she hurries up to the door with her keys in her hands and jams the key in the lock and turns it and gets through the door and turns to bolt the door behind her, only to see that there is somebody actually following her, some man that she doesn't know, and he does come right up to the door and wants her to let him in, which of course she does not do. So again, that memo, that practice, was it a coincidence that that's what came to his mind? I think not. Is it a coincidence that she chose that moment to practice the scenario and it was actually real? I think not. So again, these are some of the many different strange things that occur that we, under some circumstances, might shove under the rug or write off and not pay attention to. And then when it happens so that the sign is so large and painted so brightly, we can't ignore it. It's always, it's always something that's going to stick in our memory. Well, that's it for today. That's, part 2 of a 3-part tale about coincidence and synchronicity and other strange things along those lines that happen. And in my 3rd installment, there'll be a lot more stories. And I encourage you to pay attention to the world around you and see how you're communicating with your deeper self. See what's there for you. It's fascinating. It's just fascinating when we allow ourselves that little bit of room to just notice what's really happening. Well, you have a wonderful afternoon, and I will be back later on, and I'm going to post some guided imagery, post a meditation. So I hope you enjoyed this little chat today, and I would love to hear from you. This is Raven Dana saying thanks for tuning in to Walking Between the Worlds. Bye for now.